Hey y'all, Lady Jarhead. I'm coming at you today to do resin reviews on 5 types of resin and some pigments. And every one of these resins I'm reviewing, I'll probably be doing 2 videos because it's cutting me off trying to do one. So, but anything that you see in my video today can be purchased at www.theepoxyresinstore.com. If you have any questions with anything I'm showing or saying on my video, please comment below. I will try my best to answer. If I cannot, I will direct your questions and concerns to Rich, which is the owner of the Epoxy Resin Store. He's very knowledgeable and helpful, great customer service in my experiences. So I'm sure that you won't have any trouble with, getting any answers to any questions you may have. So I'm going to get started because I do have a lot to cover. And I'm going to, like I said, I'll probably do half and then cut the video off and do another video. So we're going to start today first with the Decorative Casting Epoxy, which is this resin here. My lighting is very poor in my craft room, so you'll have to bear with me. These are the big bottles. I'm not sure if he carries this one in a smaller size. I don't think so, but I could be mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But this resin is specifically for deep casting, thick pours, basically. So if you're, casting extremely large paperweights or really thick tiles, like in my case here, this would be a good resin to use. It is a bit cheaper than some of the other resins, but the one thing that will intimidate a lot of people, and I say that because it was a little intimidating to me, but once I got my ratios right, it was a piece of cake. It's no reason to be intimidated at all. You can figure it out. Trust me, if I can, as bad as I am in math, anybody can. So the thing is, this part A, which is the resin, is 100 parts to 33 parts of the B, which is the hardener. So you'll have to have a digital scale in order to properly, get the right amounts of this to mix. Now, it is extremely thin like water. It's crystal clear. And I mean, the only bubbles you may get in the piece is if you push your sticker down and, air comes from underneath your sticker and you get a bubble. That's it. There's no bubbles in that resin whatsoever. It is very clear, like I said. Another thing is it takes over 24 hours to cure. It will be in my conditions here in Louisiana where it's very humid. And even though we did have some cold days recently, it's still AC on in, December. So, it's very hot and humid here. So in my conditions, it was really tacky in about 24 hours. It took a little longer, probably 30 or so hours to completely each layer to cure. Now, I'm sure that if you do a big pour all at once, like a very deep paperweight, and you don't do layers, it's going to cure faster because, of course, the bigger pour you make, the hotter it gets, the quicker it cures. But I did layers. So in my experience with what I did, that's about approximately how long it took. So you have to have patience with this resin, and you have to not be intimidated as far as the mixing goes, 100 parts to 33 parts. This is the piece that I made with it. Like I said, my lighting is very poor. It is very thick. I don't know how thick, probably about 2 inches or so, a little bit bigger. So the final pour on the back is a fast cure resin, but everything else was the decorative casting. It's a very heavy piece. I'm really liking that resin for the deep casting. It's like I said, it is crystal clear. That piece has just been popped directly out of a mold that was not shiny. It has not been glazed, it has not been sanded. None of these pieces I'm showing you have been finished. They're directly popped out of the mold. So, keep that in mind as you look at the things. I will continue to use this because I do make some deep pieces with some specimens. It's very good for florals, insects, which is, I do that a lot. So you know, I'll definitely be making a lot more with this resin. So then I'm going to go ahead and go over the pigment since I have them right here. I tested the white and the black pigment. It's a liquid. Let me see if I can open this with one hand. Here we go. Okay, so this is the liquid pigment. As you can see, it's very thick. For it to be liquid, it's pretty thick. Awesome. Just sum it up right there in a word. You take your toothpick or your stir stick, you dip it in there, you dip it in your, I will mix my pigments in one part, either part A or part B, mix it thoroughly, and then add the two resins together. That's how I mix in my powders and my inks and everything. So that's how I did this. And I just use a toothpick and use very little of the white in these pieces here. I did use the black as well, but I don't have that in front of me. I did make a lot more stuff, but I've gifted them for Christmas, so you're not seeing everything I made with them. But I did use the white with these pieces here. And, very little. And look at the brilliant white. And it's hard to get a good white with resin without adding too much to where your piece doesn't cure properly. So this is really ideal if you want a good solid hard white, not a milky looking white. The black as well, because black is another. Black and whites are hard to get a good that solid color, which these are going to do it. He's got many other colors which I am going to be buying and trying. Looking forward to that. This thing is going to last forever. You got to be a pouring full to use this up. And trust me, I pour a lot, and that's going to last me forever. So, we're going to move on to the Clearcast 7000, which is a 1-to-1 resin, equal part A to equal parts B. I have used this in the past, so this is not my first time using this. This is the resin that I have been using lately. This is my go-to resin. I have tried lots and lots of resins, and outside of Little Windows, this is by far my go-to resin. I love Little Windows. Little Windows is a beautiful resin. It's just extremely expensive, and this is going to give you the same quality as far as the clarity and the shine for way better on your wallet. So this is the one I've been using personally. Okay. Now, these are the pieces that I made with some of the pieces. Like I said, I don't have everything here. And I wanted to show these clear pieces that I just dropped some colorant I had left over into. And I want you to see how, like I said, they haven't been sanded, they haven't been glazed. And look how gorgeous. Do you see bubbles in those? Nope. And do you see how shiny the back is? Gorgeous. The front, this is absolutely gorgeous resin. I love it. I'm thrilled to death with it. So here's another clear piece that I just dribbled some colors in. This one is just some glitter sprinkled in. I was just trying to test, I tested, pigments, Pearlexes, glitters, inks, you name it. I tested it with these, and not one piece did not come out properly. So now I'm going to go over some pros and cons of the resin. I'll just zoom in while I'm talking here on this resin here, okay? Now, the pros are it's a thin resin. It's watery is what I mean by a thin resin. It's not thick at all, which to me is my preference. I prefer the thinner resins because it is such a bubble-free resin if it's not thick. So my preference is I like it thin like that, okay? There's no smell to it. It's got, beautiful clarity and shine, like I said. Now the cons are that it can get slightly bendy in heat. And when I say slightly, compared to other resins, it barely gets bendy at all in heat. I'm in Louisiana in the swamp, humid, very humid. And if you stay outside all day, you might be able to bend this piece slightly. You're not going to be able to bend it and touch each side to each other like a lot of the resins I've used in the past. But, you know, it will, if you're out in the heat all day long, it could get a little bendy, slightly bendy. It will not get sticky, but it might get a little bendy. Also, if it is exposed to direct sunlight for, you know, long periods of time, it can get a hint of yellow, very mild, compared, like I said, to the other resins I have used. And I've tried a lot of resins. So this, in comparison, it would take years for this to start yellowing. Unless you're going to sit it out in the sun all day, every day for a week, then yeah, you're going to get some yellowing faster. But if you're wearing jewelry out in town, it's going to take a year or two before your piece is going to, you know, even begin to even think about getting a little yellow hint to it. If your piece is colored, for example, you're not going to see that. It's not going to be an issue. If you have more clear pieces, then yes, you, for example, this. Now, if I was to stick this out in the sun, you know, day in and day out for, you know, a week or so of time, then it will get a yellow hue to it. So those are the cons of the Clearcast 7000. All right, now I'm going to move on to the Clearcast 7050, which is this. Let me back up. This is the 7050, which is a 2 parts A to 1 part B. So this is more along the lines of a comparison as far as Little Windows goes, because Little Windows is a 2-to-1 ratio as well, more of a jewelry grade type resin, which this is definitely a, you know, higher grade. To be honest with you, the only difference I have noticed in the two are things you can't see, okay, which is, for example, this is 60% harder. So these pieces here that I've made with the 7050 are 60% harder than the 7000. So this piece will never get bendy on you. It will not be in the heat, you know, bending at all in the heat. It also has the best UV protectors out of all the resins. So you're not going to get yellow colors. And this, you can set it out with this piece, like you can take one of these pieces with this piece that I did with 7000 and set it out together, you know, a week, every day, all day, and you'll see that this piece will not yellow. This one might yellow slightly. So those are things you don't, you know, notice with the naked eye, but that, you know, those are bonuses. Now, the negative about it being 60% thicker, I mean harder, is if you have thin piece you're trying to pop out of a mold, or you have a thin section on a piece, like this tail where it met with the fin, it popped off when I try to demold it, which thin pieces will do that. So this is not a resin to pour thinner pieces with. That's not, you know, this is a good resin to do. See, the tips of the starfish broke. The thicker part in the middle was fine, but when you got to the thinner areas and the tips, it's brittle. It breaks off. So that's one of the cons. Also, for my personal preference, like I said, this video is based on my opinion, you know, of me testing out these products. So this is very thick. The part A is extremely thick, which the only resin I can honestly compare it to as far as thickness would be the ice resin, if anybody is familiar with that resin. Now, I had to do a hot bath with this in order to use it because I don't like the micro bubbles. I did pour a piece and left it blank. This was without the hot bath. Let me see if I can get a better. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this with my horrible lighting. Maybe if I put a piece behind it. I don't think that helped. But I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to tilt it around. Yeah, you can probably see right there. See all the micro bubbles in there? That is if you do not give it a hot bath, because it's so thick that when you mix the two, you're going to incorporate bubbles. There's no way around it because it is so thick. So my suggestion is you give it a hot bath. You pour your, you know, however many ounces of this you're going to use. It's 2 to 1. So if you're going to make 6 ounces, you do 4 ounces of this, 2 ounces of this. So you're going to get your 4 ounces, put it in a cup, and then set that cup in a bowl with hot water, not boiling on the stove, like hot out of the tap water. And you're going to let it bathe for, a good 10 minutes or so, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, until, and what I do is every couple minutes I'll stir it gently to kind of, move it around so all of it evenly warms up. And then when it gets thin enough to where, you feel you're not going to get a ton of bubbles, then you pull it out and you mix it with the Part B. Now, another thing I have noticed, in my personal opinion, what works best for me is if I pour A into B. Instead of measuring this first and then pouring this in behind it in the cup, I will put this in a cup and then pour this on top of this. It makes for easier mixing and it incorporates less bubbles. I don't know why, don't ask me why. I just know that it worked better for me. So that's a suggestion that I have for you. That was pretty much my big con with this resin, which it's not a biggie. Like I said, if you do hot bath, a lot of girls do hot baths. I've never had to do it before, so that was something new for me, but it's totally workable. I can do that. So those are your pros and cons of the 7050. Now, like I said, it's 60% harder. It has under 1% optical brighteners. It has the best UV protection. So, the cons outweigh the pros, definitely. The pros outweigh the cons, excuse me. So, also another suggestion I have for you, if you get the bigger sizes like I like to get, transfer some to smaller bottles, because this can get really messy trying to measure the heavier, bigger bottles. So that's just a suggestion I have for you as well. Now I'm going to show you some of the pieces that I made with the 7050, which, like I said, these were made in plastic molds, not shiny molds, and look how shiny they are. So, very happy with this resin. I'm liking it. I really am. You just have to remember not to pour in thinner molds, because I had some breakage. Now, for if you're making some nice jewelry, and when I say nice, I don't mean, nobody's jewelry is nice. When I say nice, I mean like this is cute and all, but this to me is not a beautiful piece of jewelry. So when I'm making my, my ocean scenes and my flowers and stuff like that, this would be the resin I use. My other resins like this is going to be my 7000, because even though this has got a better UV protector and it's harder, for my go-to resin, this is it. And this will be for my, fancier, classier type jewelry pieces. So I also made these tiles. Like I said, I have not sanded or glazed or anything. So these were completely made with the 7050. And as you can tell, they are really clear. Those are fake bubbles I added just so you don't